Hi, so in this video, I want to introduce Cisco IOS, the command line. So to get started, I'm going to grab a 4331 router. I'm going to put it right there. Going to make it a little bigger. All right. So initially, there is no network connection on this router. Now, a router and a switch are actually both computers. They have an operating system, CPU, RAM memory, ROM memory, permanent storage like non-volatile RAM and flash. They are a computer. This device here right now, no network connection. So we need to initially configure it. And the way that we're going to do that is I'm going to connect my computer. But the way I'm going to connect my computer to this router is just like what we would do in the old days, connecting to any computer. This computer here is going to act as a terminal. Remember, the computer is actually right here right now. Okay. So what I'm going to do is connect a rollover cable from my RS-232 serial port in this case. Nowadays on a real computer, we'd use USB. And I'm going to connect it to the console port on the router. Now, again, this router is the computer. My PC is going to be acting as just a dumb terminal. I'm going to move some things around here in a moment, so let me just pause the recording for a sec. Okay, so I want to click on the router here and bring up the physical tab. I'm going to zoom in, and what I am connected to is right here, the console port on this router, okay, using this rollover cable. Now, to configure this device, what I need to do is I need to go on my computer, in this case, Packet Tracer PC0. I'm going to click on Desktop, and I'm going to go to Terminal. So this is in Packet Tracer, this is my terminal emulator application. Now, if I was using a real computer, I would be choosing something, an application like PuTTY, Secure CRT, or ZOC, or one of these. Now, one of the things I have to make sure on all these applications is that I've chosen the connection type serial. Okay, I don't have that option here. It defaults to that. Now, this router, all Cisco devices, are expecting specific parameters for this terminal emulator software to be able to communicate it. Again, this is my computer emulating a dumb terminal. The parameters Cisco IOS expects are 9600 baud rate, 8 data bits, no parity, 1 stop bit, no flow control. Once I have that set, I can just click OK. And I would see in my terminal emulator software, I'm going to move this over here so we can see it fully. I would see some output. Now, if I'm not getting any output on a physical device, hit Enter. That means, oh, okay, then I'm prompting the computer to return whatever it's asking me. In this case, it's saying, would you like to enter initial configuration dialog mode? I'm always going to type no here. Okay. Now it says press return to get started, and I have a prompt. Now, on some iOS devices, you might get another prompt after, would you like to enter initial configuration dialog? And that is, would you like to terminate auto install? In that case, always say yes, you want to terminate auto install. Okay, so right now I'm on this PC using a terminal emulation software to act as a dumb terminal to configure this router. Everything I am doing, all this output here is from the router, just like if I was on my computer command prompt. And all the input I'm giving is from my keyboard. Okay, so let's take a look at a few things here. So right now I am in what is called user mode. Okay, so I'm going to press question mark here, and this shows me the commands that I can use at user mode. Now, on a real device, I'm going to get more of these. Now, what user mode means, by the way, is not means any of our users on our network can have access to this. It means a mode of access to the router or switch where we can view things, but we cannot make changes. Now I see that I have show here. So I'm going to do show and then hit enter. It tells me incomplete command. Oh, okay. Well, what kind of commands can I give? Well, I can do show. Again, use the question mark, and it will tell me what parameters are available to me. Don't worry about all of these, okay? Okay, we have a lot of stuff here. Cisco gives you every possibility. You don't have to have all these memorized, okay? You'll be using certain ones that become very familiar to you. Other ones you'll need as you need them. You'll figure out how you use them when you need them. So don't get overwhelmed by this. Notice that we do have the more right here. Okay, if I hit enter, it will give me the next line. And if I hit enter again, it will give me another line. But if I hit space, it will give me another screen load of information. I can also hit any key to stop showing me anything. Okay, again, don't worry about all of these. We'll be looking at these more in a moment. Let's do show. What would I see one here? IP. What is that? Show IP. Hit enter. Again, incomplete command. Means it wants more information. Show IP question mark. Ah, what's it want to show me? Okay, boy, all of these things. Okay. Don't worry about this command right now. I'm just going to show you. I'm going to choose interface, space. You know what? I don't see an option that tells me I can hit the carriage return. We'll see that in a moment. Okay. See, I could actually do that after interface. See the CR? It means I could actually hit the carriage return. I'm just showing you the parameters. Don't worry about this command right now. Okay. But if I hit enter here right now, carriage return, okay, I get some information about my interfaces. Boy, it's telling me that I have a lot of things down. That's because I haven't configured anything, okay? But we'll get there. We'll get there. Let's not worry about it right now. Okay, I do want to make changes to this router. Okay, so what are some of the changes I may want to make? Well, let's do this. I'm going to type enable here, and enable allows me to make changes. Notice my prompt change. This puts me in what's known as privileged exec mode. Matter of fact, if I use the question mark now, I'll see more options than I had before. I still have all the options I had in user mode, but now in privileged exec mode, I have even more options. Okay. Now, you think, boy, can anybody go from user mode to privileged exec mode? Maybe we should have a password. You're right. And we'll do that a little later. Okay. Now, one of the things I want to mention is that I'm going to use the show command here and use question mark. I'll make this a little wider here so we can, there we go. And then we hit the space bar. And yeah, then I'm just going to hit any key and stop this. What's any key? Hit the G key. Now it left me off at show. What I want to do is show running config. Okay, show the current operating configuration. Let's do that. Running config. What is that? Show running config. Wow, a lot of stuff there. Look, I hit spacebar more. A lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. What is all this stuff? Let's not worry about it right now. But this is the template. Okay, everything I configure, let me scroll up here. Anything I configure, like if I configure an IP address on this interface, it will show up here. So all my configurations will show up here. This is just kind of a blank template. Notice I have a host name, router. That's why I see this router as my host name right here. Okay, you know what? We can modify that, can't we? Let's go ahead and do that. Okay. Now, by the way, this running config file that you're seeing here, and I'm going to modify the host name in a moment, this is in RAM memory. So any changes I make are just in RAM memory. Okay. If I reboot this router, or we have a power outage or something, all my changes get lost unless I save it. So we'll do that here in a moment. So let me change the name of this router. So how do I make a change? All right. Well, first thing I have to do is I have to go into a mode called global configuration mode. Okay, so I'm going to do configure terminal. Now you notice I started to do a short way of doing that. I'll show that in a moment. Configure terminal. Notice my prompt changed. This is the mode I have to be in. This is known as global configuration mode. Okay, when I see this prompt like this here with config in parentheses, this is what's going to allow me to make modifications. I may have to go into other modes, as we'll see in a moment, for a specific interface. Okay, now to get back to where I was, kind of this root prompt here, okay, I can type exit. Now notice that I got some output here from iOS telling me that I've changed modes, and I'm way down here. We'll just hit enter, and we're going to see how we can fix that. So I always get to a prompt here. We'll see that in a moment. But I want to mention something. The nice thing about Cisco IOS, and I'm going to do a question mark because what we used here was the configure, enter configuration mode. Okay, I typed configure. See, I can't type it, can I? Well, I can, but I'm just messing it up. Let me type C-O-N. There's a lot of things begin with C-O-N, isn't there? Let me do C-O-N-F. If I type enough of a command or parameter that makes it unique, like C-O-N-F, C-O-N is not unique, and I hit the tab, it auto completes it for me. Okay. If I hit T, there's nothing else, that parameter that begins with T, tab autocomplete. I can use that to autocomplete any commands and parameters. Something else I can do, let me type exit again, hit enter. I don't actually have to type the entire command or parameter as long as it's unique. So I'm typing, I want configure. Now I can't just type C-O-N because there's another command that belongs with C-O-N. So I can type C-O-N-F, and that's good enough, space. And now look, if I hit the question mark, it says, yeah, I know that you meant configure. And now terminal, yeah, I could just do T for terminal. Conf T, configure terminal. Enough of a command or parameter to make it unique. Okay, said I was going to change the host name. Let's hit question mark at this level. You can see I'm going to get a different group of commands that I can use. I'm going to hit the any key, the D key, and I can see host name is one of my commands I can give at this level. So I'm going to type host name, question mark. What do they want from me? They want a word. Okay, so there are some specific requirements, like you can't use spaces and things like that. But I'm just going to, for now, I'm just going to call this my, just going to say Rick's router. How's that? Okay, just so we can see that I have a new prompt. There we go. Now, where is all this information going? It's going into that running config file that we saw previously. Let me show you. Okay, now to get to the show commands, notice if I hit question mark here, there's no show commands here. I'm going to show you a way around this in a moment, but for now, I'm going to type exit. There again, I'm getting that. We're going to fix that in a moment. So I get my prompt right away. Okay, I'm going to do show running config. You know what? Remember we said, hey, I can use the autocomplete tab. Let me try that. Yes, autocomplete. Okay, that's one way of doing it. Could also just do show run, but let's use this for now. Okay, anything change? Hey, yes, there's my host name. But remember, this is just in the running config file. Okay, it takes effect right away. Change my prompt. But if I lose power, I'm in trouble. I'm going to have to redo that command. Okay, no big deal. But if I had a lot of commands, it would be a problem, right? Okay, so where is all this stuff saved? It's saved in another file called the startup config file, which is in non-volatile RAM. Let's do show startup config and hit enter, and it says not present. That's because I haven't saved anything to this file. Okay, so what I need to do is this: copy running, and I can use my autocomplete config to start. I'm going to use the tab key to startup config. I hit enter. Says, is this where you want to send it? Yes. Great. Says done. Now, here's another pro tip. I can use my up arrow, okay, to get previous commands. Okay, got a little history buffer there. Show startup config. Let's see if it's present this time. It is. Yep, it even has, there's Rick's router and all that other stuff. All right, so anytime I'm happy with my changes, then I should copy my running config to startup. And here's an easy way to do that. Copy, run to start, as long as this part is unique. You'll notice it recognizes it. Okay, let's do one more here. I'm going to do a few things actually, but there is one thing we can change at this level without going into that global configuration mode, without going into conf t configure terminal. There's something we can set at this level, and that's the time. Okay, now if I do show clock, this tells me the time and date set on this device. We'll talk about this later, but we want current time and date, and we want it synchronized on all of our devices. So we, in case there's something we're trying to track down, like an issue in our network or an attack or whatever, we want to be able to trace where it started, what devices got affected when, and other things as well. So we want to set this clock. Now I'm going to do it manually here. Okay. In the real world, we'd use a server to give us our time, just like your computer gets a server using a protocol called network time protocol. That's for another time. For now, let's go ahead and modify the time. Again, I have to be in privileged exec mode. Okay. If I wasn't, let me show you how to get out of privileged exec mode. Disable. Ah, that took me out, right? Now I'm going to type enable. That puts me back in privileged exec mode. This is where I have to be. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to do clock. Well, let's do question mark. We'll see that I have the option clock. Manage the system clock. Okay. How do I do that? Clock. Enter. Nope. Incomplete command. I think you knew that was coming. Question mark. Clock. And I have one option, and that's to use the parameter set. Okay, so let's just keep on using the question mark and let it walk ourselves through this. Okay, I'm going to put the time and date. Okay, so the time first it's asking. So I'm going to put, let's put 0930. Okay, now I'm sure it's going to ask something else, so I'm just going to put a question mark here. What else do you want? Now it's asking me I can do it one of two ways. I can start with the day of the month or the month first. Okay. So in most areas of the world, they like to put day first. In the United States, we tend to put month first. Okay, so I'm going to put JAN for January. Okay, now it says, okay, since you put the month, now give the day. Okay, I'm going to put 20 space, and I think you know what's coming next, the year, 2025. Okay, now space. Now if I do question mark, you'll notice my only option is CR. Carriage return, meaning I'm done. Okay. I do show clock now, I should show this date and time. All right, so the mode I am in right now, I'm in privileged exec prompt, and I'm kind of at the root prompt. And this is the only command, or one of very few commands, the clock set command, where we actually change something at this level. Everything else, I need to be in global configuration mode. Configure terminal. I'll just do conf t. All right. I've already changed the host name at this level. One of the things that's very important to do for me, because Rick makes mistakes a lot, is this next command. Let me see if I can show you the problem that can happen first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type exit. Okay. Now I'm just going to make a typo there. What just happened? Now I'm hitting enter. I'm trying to hit Control C, break nothing. Okay, you make a typo like this, and Cisco IOS thinks you're trying to give it a name of a system you're trying to connect to. Okay, of course we're not. But it's first saying, well, let me see if I can ask a DNS server what the IP address of this name is. What is Rick talking about? Well, don't worry about it. Just know we're going to fix this because I can't do anything until it comes back, okay, with a prompt. So I'm hitting enter here, waiting for this prompt, okay? Come on. We're going to fix this so this doesn't happen to us. This next command is probably one of the first commands I give anytime I'm configuring a Cisco device. See how long it's taking? I'm waiting. I'm hitting enter here. Maybe you can even hear me pressing enter. I am waiting. There we go. Finally. Let's go back into global configuration mode. And one of my favorite commands is no IP domain lookup. Okay. There. Now let's go back and I'm going to redo that same terrible command I did. See, I'm going to hit the up arrow, make sure I do it exactly. Now look, it just says unknown command or computer name. All right, thank you. That's all I needed from you. All right. So that's the result of this command here. No IP domain lookup. So I got this instead of waiting for this. Okay. Let's go back into global configuration mode. Next thing I want to do is I want to configure this console port. Some things I want to do. I want to require a password if somebody plugs in a rollover cable to this port, that they don't just have access to user mode. Okay, we want to require a password. Okay, I'm also going to do something else. And remember, a lot of times I kept on having to hit enter here when I had a prompt. Well, sometimes I'm in the middle of typing a command. Okay, I might be typing in a command interface gigabit, and all of a sudden I'll be getting some right in the middle of typing. I'm going to get some output from iOS telling me a interface has come up or something, and it messes up where I am. Okay, so right after all this, I'll get all this, and then we'll leave my prompt. It's like, well, where was I left off? I was in the middle of typing. We're going to fix that as well. So what I'm going to do is go into line console 0. There is only one console, and it's console 0. Okay. Now, one of the things I want to do is this logging, and I'm going to use the autocomplete synchronous. And I don't have to, I can just do logging sync, but I'm going to use the tab for the auto so you can see the complete command. Okay, anytime, like I was just saying, if I'm in the middle of typing a command and Cisco IOS gives me output, it will give me a brand new prompt and leave me off with where I was in my typing. It will also fix the issue of every time I get a message like this, okay, going from global config mode back to the root prompt. It'll give me my prompt. I'll have my cursor right at that prompt. Very handy, nice command. Okay. The next one I'm going to do is I'm going to require a password when somebody connects to the console port. So I'm putting a space here so you can see it a little more clearly. Password. How do you spell password? Cisco. Cisco is going to be our password. There's only 2 passwords we're ever going to use in my labs. Okay. One is Cisco, and we'll see the other one is class in a moment. Okay. That way we don't have to worry about password recovery. Now I'm also going to say login to give us a login prompt. Okay, we're going to see this in a moment. The other one I'm going to give is right here, exec and timeout 0, 0. Okay, this is minutes and seconds. This is what I'm saying here is do not time me out. Now, this is only something you do in a lab. If I'm on a production network, on a production device, and somebody calls me out to go check something, and I'm in the middle of configuring a device, and I forget to log out, I want it to log me out after a few minutes. Okay, without any input from me. This keeps that from happening. And again, like I said, only in a lab environment would you ever want to do this. Okay. So exec timeout, and so we can see it's minutes. We'll say 0 minutes and 0 seconds. Just log me out. All right, we are done. I'm going to type exit here on that. Let's test something. Oh, let's do one more cool thing, and then we'll give it a little test. When somebody tries to log into this device, maybe we would like a nice little banner. Again, I'm still in global configuration mode. I'm going to say banner, MOTD, message of the day. Now, the next character, symbol, whatever I press here is a delimiter. I'm going to do $. Okay. What this means is, let me press enter, is I'm going to enter in what I would like users to see when they attempt to log in. Okay, I'm making a little banner here. I can hit space. I can say authorized access only. I can see where that $sign comes in a moment. I'm going to do another group of hashtags, pound signs, whatever you want to call them. Now, if this is the end of my message, what I'm going to do is, like it says here, enter text message, end with the character $sign. I can't use a $sign in my banner message, okay? Because I'm going to use it, as you can see here, to end the conversation and end the message. There's the beginning of it. Here's the end. Press enter. There we go. Now let's see what happened with all this. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say exit, and I'm going to exit again. Okay. Now this is what would happen if I just plugged in initially. I might see this, or I might just get a blank screen. I plug in to the console port, plug in, and then I hit enter, and I'll get this banner message of the day. There's my banner. Asking for a password, Cisco. Okay, now I'm in. Okay, but I'm in user mode. Okay, so I'm going to type in enable. Now I'm in privilege exec prompt. Let's take a look at our running config file, okay, which I have to be in privilege exec mode to look at. Okay, so what I mean by that, if I go type disable, if I try and look to show running config, it won't understand it. See this error here? It understands show, but it doesn't understand what's ever beginning here. Invalid input. That's because I can't be in this mode. I have to be in privileged exec mode to use this command, show running config or show run. There we go. Ah, that's better. There's my host name. What else? Some other things we'll be configuring later. There's my line console 0. And there's all the commands that I entered. Okay. If I'm happy with this, I might want to do copy run to start. Copy running config to startup config. Okay. So in case we, router reboots, we have our configuration. Okay, now one of the issues that we still have to resolve is that we can go from user mode to privileged exec mode without a password. Let's fix that. Global configuration mode, I'm going to give the command enable secret, and then the other password we're always going to use, either Cisco or this one here, class. Okay, what does this do? Let's do exit. Let's exit all the way out. Exit all the way out. Okay, This is my console password, Cisco. You don't see it, do you? Cisco. Now I'm in user mode. I want to go into privilege exec mode. I type enable. This time, notice it asks for a password. This is where I put in the password class. Okay. All right. Now, what if we want to start configuring this router for an IP address? So what I'm going to do right now, don't worry about all these things right now. Okay, if we're not there in the lecture, we'll get there. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a Ethernet switch, little 2960 switch here. Okay, and I'm going to connect this router. This router has some fast Ethernet ports we can see up here, gigabit 000, gigabit 001. I'm going to connect an Ethernet copper straight through cable from the router's gigabit 000 port to any port on the switch. Okay, it can be fast Ethernet or gigabit, doesn't, as long as it's not console. Yeah, switches have console ports too, so we can remotely manage them. Okay, so I'm just going to put this first one here. I'll just put fast Ethernet. Okay, make this like this. Okay, now the link, this is showing the link lights. Okay, I can go into Cisco Packet Tracer preferences. And what I have is I have show link lights. Okay, so right now it's showing that the link lights are red, meaning they're down, they're shut, the link is shut down. We're going to fix that here in just a moment. Okay, let me go back here. There we go. I closed all that. I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back to our terminal. There we go. No big deal. All right. Okay. I might as well bring up this router again, show you, zoom in. So, all right. So I'm going to configure that gigabit 000 port. Okay. I'm going to give it an IP address. Okay. So let's do that. Configure terminal. Okay. To do this, I'm going to go into one of the interfaces. Okay. So I have to type. I'm going to do a space here. You can see it nice and clearly. Interface. I'll do question mark. These are some of the interfaces I can use depending upon what kind of router I have. In this case, I'm configuring the gigabit 000 interface. How do I know the name of that interface? I'll show you that in just a moment. Okay, but trust me, we know that it's a gigabit 000. How do I know that? Okay, well, we'll take a look here in a moment. So I can do gig, and I can type out the whole thing if I want, or use the autocomplete, or just say gig. And the one interface I am going to configure is the 000 interface. Why so many numbers? About that in a moment. Okay. All right, I'm going to give it an IP address. And I'm going to give it the IP address 192.168.1.1 and the subnet mask 255.255.255.0. Okay. And I'm going to leave it at that for now. I'm not done. Actually, I have to do one more thing. But I'm going to type exit. Take me to back. Notice when I went into the interface, by the way, it put me in interface mode. Which interface? Well, specifically, I'm in a mode where I'm specifically, any commands I give, I'm specifically configuring this interface. We'll look at some of the other commands I can do at this level in a moment, but I just want to show you adding the IP address. Okay, we're going to come back to it because I'm not done. Exit. Again, I'm going to do exit again, come all the way down here. Notice logging synchronous. When I typed exit, I got my prompt. And we still have a red link light here. Let me show you a great command. Show IP interface brief, one of my favorite commands. This tells me the interfaces I have on my router. Okay. Now we're just going to be using gigabit 000 and 001, but these are the two interfaces. Notice I've added an IP address, configured an IP address to this interface, but it's in a status called administratively down. That's why we got the red link light. We're going to change that in a moment so it comes up. Here's the other interface we can configure. Okay. It is also administratively down. It has no IP address. So let's go back into that interface, config T, interface, and I can just do gig or even just G or gig 000. Now, why all of these? Different Cisco devices might have many, many interfaces, and this is just a way of arranging the interfaces. You'll see that later as we get more into other devices. For now, just know that we have two interfaces, gigabit 000 and gigabit 001 that we'll be configuring. Okay. Now, I mentioned what I'm in interface sub mode right here. That's the config IF. Okay, if I do question mark, I can see, okay, yes, this is where I started to give the IP address. And there's other commands here as well. Okay. Let me do a question mark here in space. And by default, this is in shutdown mode. Matter of fact, let's see if I can scroll up. I don't know if I'll see it or not. Yes. When I scroll up and see from the show running config, see it's automatically in shutdown mode. That's the administratively down. That's the default for all my interfaces. I'm in shutdown, administratively down. How do I reverse that? Well, let's go scroll back down. Let me exit. I'm just so make sure we're up arrow. So we're gigabit 000. I already gave the IP address. Okay. I could do it again if I wanted to. IP address. Do it again. 192. You don't have to. 1.1.255.255. We'll be talking about what all this stuff is later, the IP address and subnet mask. But now, how do I get rid of that shutdown? Well, in Cisco IOS, to get rid of something, you use the no option in front of it. I'm going to say no shutdown. Now watch what happens when I do this. When I hit enter, we're going to see a green link light come on here. We're going to see an amber link light here on the switch. That'll turn green in about 50 seconds. You'll notice also I'll get an iOS messages telling me the link is up. And because I did logging synchronous, that output will not interrupt my input. I'll be at my prompt again. You can see all of this as soon as I hit enter. Boom. Enter, green, amber, this will turn green. I'm at my prompt. See this output? And my prompt is not here. My prompt is not right after the up. It's logging synchronous gave me a brand new prompt and would lead me off where I'm at. Okay, this is going to turn amber in just a moment. Okay. Now, I'm in my office, and I'm sure it's going to turn amber. It's going to turn green. Now it's green. This switch is now, this router is now connected to this switch. So any devices connected to the switch could, configured properly, access this router or use it as our default gateway. Now, right now, the way I am configuring this router is I am actually physically connected to it. Okay. I have to be right next to this router. But what if Rick is in his office? Okay. All right. I sure would like to configure this router remotely. Let's do this. I'm going to type exit here to get me out of interface gigabit 000 mode. And I'm going to go into another sub mode, line VTY, which stands for virtual terminal, 0 through 15. That means I can have up to 16 of these virtual connections. These are remote connections. Okay. Now, what am I going to be doing here? Okay. Well, I'm going to allow remote connections, transport, input. How am I going to allow people to remotely connect to me? I can say you can use just SSH, just use Telnet, no remote access, or all means SSH and Telnet. We'll talk more about these later, but we're going to see Telnet in action right now. I'm going to type Telnet here. Okay, so I'm in line VTY 0/15, transport input Telnet. Now, the other things I need to do is this. I need to say password, give it a password. It's going to require a password to people remotely logging in. Again, I'm going to use Cisco, one of our only two passwords we'll use. Password Cisco, and I want a login prompt. Okay. Now, I'm not done yet. Exit. This is allowing, from the routers, allowing somebody to remotely log in. Okay. How does this PC be remotely log in? Let's do that. Okay. So what I am going to do right now is I am going to disconnect this cable. Okay. Now, how do I do that? What I can do is you got to be careful here. I'm going to use this delete. You ever make a mistake? Use this delete. I get this little X symbol, right? And I'm going to X over that. There we go. All right. You know, as you're going along, it's always a good idea to save what you're doing, right? I'm going to do that right now. Okay, leave it just my saves file, Rick's Lab. Okay, you may want to put it maybe your desktop or anywhere you want to put it where you can find it. And it'll automatically add a PKT extension. Okay, all this hard work. Okay, I've disconnected. Okay, my cable. Matter of fact, I'm hitting enter and getting nothing. Can you hear it? Getting nothing. Okay, now what I'm going to do is go over to this config prompt. Well, let's go back. I'm going to close this here, this X on desktop. I'm going to close my terminal. Okay, that was internal. Now I'm going to go to my command prompt. This is like we think of like a Linux or Mac OS terminal or the command prompt in Windows. I'm going to type ipconfig and we'll see I don't have any IP addressing information. So I can't remotely talk to this device over the network. Okay, what I am going to do is I am going to connect my fast Ethernet to one of the other ports. Okay, again, green link light, amber, which is going to turn green. Okay, I have the option. I'll show you where that is in preferences. When I want over a cable, it tells me what connections I'm using, what interfaces, what ports. Okay. Now this is going to turn green in a moment, but I do not have an IP address on this device, so I can't remotely talk to the router. Not yet. What I'm going to configure on this PC is I'm going to go here to config fast Ethernet. This is my interface. I'm going to give it an IP address 192.168.1.10. Okay, you'll notice the first three numbers was the same as the first three numbers of the address I gave the router. We'll get there later. I want to make sure the mask, I just clicked on the mask. If it doesn't give me 255.255.255.0, type it in. Okay. All right, now let me go back to desktop. Okay, and again, I don't know where that is. Desktop command prompt. That's where I want to be. I can use the up arrow for my IP config. Don't worry about the Bluetooth, but notice there's my IP address and subnet mask. Now, can I access the router? Let's try this. I'm going to use ping to see if I can even communicate with it. Ping is a utility that we'll talk more about it later. That uses something called ICMP messages to send a ping, an ICMP echo request, get an ICMP echo reply if we can communicate. Let's try. Yes, we can. Now, don't worry if the first one times out on you. Talk more about that later. But I can communicate at least with its IP address. Can I remotely access it? Let's give it a go. Telnet. Remember we configured Telnet on the router? Telnet, let's give the IP address of the router, 1.1. Look at this, my banner message of the day. What was that line VTY password? Cisco. Now I'm in. Yes, and I can, yes, can I go into privilege exec mode? I can. Enable class. Let's do the show running config. Show the autocomplete, just so we see the whole command. Look at all, so this is everything I've been doing. Host name. There's my enable secret command. I'm going to fix that in a moment with some other things, but this is encrypted. Good stuff. Don't want somebody looking over my shoulder being able to figure that out, what my password is. Let's see here. There's my no IP domain lookup command. There's my interface gigabit 000 with the IP address. It's the duplex and speed. It's auto negotiating with the switch. We'll talk about that later. What else? There's my banner message of the day. There's my line console 0. Oh, yes, there's my virtual terminal. Notice it breaks it up. 0 to 4, 5 through 15. Don't worry about that. But password Cisco, login, transport, input, telnet. I'm remotely connected right now. Okay. Now I got to be a little careful what I do so I don't configure something on the router that breaks my connection. Okay, like changing an IP address or shutting down this port. Then I've got to drive into work or I got to walk over there, whatever, and physically connect to the router to get to it. Okay. Now, to get out of this, I can just type exit. Now, the console connection. Okay, I'm going to show you. We do not, I could, if I wanted to. For any device, I can just go from my RS-232 to the console port. Oops, why does it tell me? What did it? I choose the wrong port? Oh, USB console. I choose not USB console, but console. But I'm going to show you a way Cisco IOS lets us get around that. I'm going to take that off. I'm going to go up here, make sure I get my, there we go, my pointer. I actually can automatically get to any command line prompt on a router switch without doing this rollover cable. How do I do that? Click on the device like the router here and just go right here to CLI tab. I'm there and actually shows me everything I've been doing. Okay, so I don't have to bother with that rollover cable for packet tracer. Just go to the CLI tab. Okay, I will show you that with the switch even. Here's our switch. If I want to configure the switch, I can just go to the CLI tab. There's my user prompt. Okay, that's what we'll normally use. Okay, but I wanted to show you the rollover cable just to show you that, you know, how this all works. And now that we have remote access, gave ourselves remote access, hey, we can do this via our telnet. I'm going to close that. What I'm going to do is actually, I'll just go right here, click on the router. I've done command line interface. And since I'm here, I'm just going to configure it as if I'm consoled in. Okay, there's something else I did want to show you. So I'm going to make this a little longer here. Let's do the show running config again. I just did show run in this case. Notice my console password and my virtual terminal, my telnet password is in clear text. Maybe we want to protect that if somebody's looking over my shoulder, they say, ooh, Cisco, to remotely access it. So what I'm going to do here is go into global configuration mode, Conf T, and I'm going to use the command service password encryption. I could just do service pass. Now, what does that do? Let's try. Exit. Up arrow. I'll do show running config. Now, notice down here, those passwords are now encrypted, not strong encryption. There's a better way to do the actually strong encryption. This could be broken in very easy, hacked in just a second or two. It's just meant to keep somebody from looking over your shoulder and seeing the password. Now, we're not quite done because what if we have a power outage, right? Okay, our startup config doesn't have all of our latest changes. So I'm going to do copy running config to startup config. Just do copy run space start. It's good enough. And there we go. The other thing I want to do, save my packet tracer file. Okay, keep saving that. Now we're doing great. Okay, we know how to have console access with the rollover cable, or we can cheat a little bit, not cheating, but just use the CLI tab here. But now we configured on this PC, right? We configured an IP address for interface fast Ethernet, IP address subnet mask. That allows us at the desktop, command prompt, we can see the IP address subnet mask we configured, and we saw, oh yes, we can telnet remotely access this device over the network now. There's our banner message of the day. Cisco, we're in user mode, enable, class. Now we're in privileged exec mode, and I can even make changes. Okay. And we could take a look at a lot of neat things. Matter of fact, let me show you one more. Show IP interface brief again. Remember I told you one of my favorite commands? Look at this. It shows us our interface, the IP address on the interface, and now it says up and up. Okay, because we've got the green link light, configured to the switch. We did the no shutdown. We're good to go. Type exit here. All right. And we'll be doing this a lot throughout our labs, so you become very familiar with these commands. All right. Hope you found this lab helpful. Have a great day, everybody.